Is it possible that one of the most promising young defensive cornerstones in the NFL is currently being dangled as trade bait for a role player? The rumors are swirling. The speculation is reaching a boiling point, and the logic behind it is being torn apart by those who know this roster best. We are talking about a potential blockbuster deal that could redefine a defense, or end up being remembered as one of the most baffling decisions in recent history. But before we pull back the curtain on why this trade talk is sending shockwaves through the league, you need to know exactly why the team is standing firm. Smash that subscribe button right now if you want the fastest, most intense NFL updates on the planet. The story begins with a report that has set the internet on fire. It involves a massive, hypothetical swap, sending the formidable interior force Jalen Carter to the Arizona Cardinals. In exchange, the proposed deal suggests a second-round draft pick and veteran edge rusher Josh Sweat. On the surface, the theory is that Philadelphia needs to bolster its pass rush. The logic claims that with various young players fighting for snaps, adding a proven commodity like Sweat could solve a glaring hole. We are looking at a veteran with years of experience, a player who knows the system and has been a reliable presence for a long time. However, we have to address the reality of the situation. Why would a team surrender a defensive weapon like Jalen Carter, a player with the kind of ceiling that makes scouts drool, for a move that essentially feels like a lateral step? The answer lies in the history of trade rumors surrounding this specific player. This isn't the first time Jalen Carter's name has been tossed around.
Devontae Smith. It really dictates the defense.
There was significant noise about a potential package involving none other than Micah Parsons. The rumor mill claimed there was a pathway to bring Parsons to Philadelphia, with Carter acting as the centerpiece of the counteroffer. The team didn't blink. They didn't even entertain the thought of letting him go. Then there was the saga involving Myles Garrett. Again, the trade rumors surfaced. Again, the name Jalen Carter was floated. And again, the doors remained locked. It is clear that the internal belief in Carter's future is absolute. The front office isn't looking at his recent hurdles, the injuries, the complex contracts, the on-field antics, as reasons to bail. They are looking at him as a diamond in the rough, a future Defensive Player of the Year candidate who just needs one more season to truly ignite. They're betting on the talent, and they're betting hard. Trading a potential generational star for a solid, 29-year-old veteran like Josh Sweat doesn't align with that vision. It makes the trade proposal feel more like social media noise than a genuine strategy. But don't get it twisted. The interest in Josh Sweat remains very real. He is a talent that fits the identity of a hard-nosed defensive front, and the frustration he reportedly feels in Arizona is the kind of catalyst that often leads to movement before the trade deadline. Perhaps the real story isn't the trade happening today, but the patience being exercised until the season hits a critical juncture. Imagine the deadline approaching, injuries taking their toll, and the need for a seasoned veteran becoming undeniable. That is when the script could flip, and a move for a player like Sweat becomes an act of brilliance rather than a desperate reach. Who is truly to blame for these wild trade narratives? Is it the media cycle looking for clicks, or the sheer volatility of the league's current landscape? Drop a name in the comments, and let's see who really has the pulse on this front office. But just as the defensive talk settles, a new storm is brewing in the offensive rankings. It is a story of disrespect, a narrative that has quietly bubbled under the surface, and now it has reached a breaking point. When you look at the landscape of wide receivers, the metrics usually tell a story of consistency, health, and impact. Yet, the latest anonymous polls from coaches, general managers, and executives have delivered a verdict that has left many in shock. Devontae Smith has been ranked as the 22nd best wide receiver in the entire NFL. Take a moment to let that sink in. This is a player who, on paper, has been an absolute technician. He has navigated injuries, he has adjusted to different roles, and he has produced at a level that commands respect. Yet he is sitting outside the top 20, ranked significantly lower than his own teammate, A.J. Brown. The math simply doesn't add up for those who have watched him dismantle secondaries with clinical precision. The comparison to what we saw with Jackson Smith-Njigba in Seattle is unavoidable. In his early years, JSN was relegated to a secondary option, showing flashes of brilliance but struggling to escape the shadow of a larger name. Once the opportunity arrived, once the targets became consistent, the numbers skyrocketed into the stratosphere. That is the exact trajectory everyone sees for Smith. He is currently being treated as a secondary threat, yet his efficiency metrics rival the most elite number one options in the game. When you look at receivers like Terry McLaurin or Garrett Wilson, they're the suns around which their respective offenses revolve. They get the volume, they get the attention, and they get the accolades. Smith, meanwhile, has been operating in a crowded room, yet he has consistently outperformed expectations. Do you think Devontae Smith is ready to shed the label of a number 2 receiver and explode into the top 10? Is he about to cross the 1,000-yard mark and silence every single doubter who pinned him at 22nd? This is the year the narrative changes, and if the early indicators in camp are anything to go by, he isn't just ready, he is hungry. As we look across the defensive side of the ball, there's a fascinating shift occurring at the linebacker position. The latest rankings have seen Zach Bond holding firm in the top 5, a testament to his rising stock and defensive utility. It's a remarkable climb, but the real intrigue lies in the rookies and the depth pieces fighting for the spotlight. Take a name like Jayad Campbell. He didn't capture a top 10 spot in the polls, but he did receive enough votes to make him a name to watch. For a young player who didn't see the field in every single defensive snap last season, that recognition is a massive indicator of how the rest of the league views his potential. The defensive unit is becoming an embarrassment of riches. With names like Felix Hunt, Morrow, Rick Woolen, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell, it is easy to see how a player with Campbell's ceiling could almost be lost in the shuffle. But make no mistake, when you have a first-round talent showing that kind of flash in year 2, the potential for a top 10 linebacker emergence is very real. It is a big challenge to fill the shoes of the predecessors in that room, but the athleticism and the instinct are there. He is the secret weapon that could turn this unit from good to elite. However, the path to the field is never guaranteed, and the pressure is mounting with the arrival of training camp. The competition is fierce, and one name that keeps coming up is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. There's a raw, physical intensity to his game that the coaching staff loves. As the team moves into the grind of padded practices, where the real evaluators separate the starters from the depth, Trotter has a golden opportunity to prove he is more than just a name on a roster. The instincts, the pedigree, and the desire to fill gaps and navigate traffic in the trenches are all there. It is the ultimate proving ground. If he shows that he could be a physical force when the contact is live, he could force a conversation that changes the rotation entirely. The question isn't whether the talent exists, but who has the drive to seize the role when the pads start popping. We're talking about veterans fighting for every inch of playing time and rookies fighting to even get their foot in the door. The energy at the practice facility is electric, and for any player with something to prove, the clock is ticking. Think about the sheer amount of work being put in even during the summer heat. Seeing key starters like Saquon Barkley and Cooper DeJean training together, locked in, focusing on the conditioning that will define their seasons, sends a message to the entire locker room. These aren't just players showing up. They're athletes preparing for a war of attrition. And then there is the Rick Woolen factor. He has arguably been the winner of the offseason, the name on everyone's lips when discussing the most impressive performers during the organized team activities. When you have elite corners locking down the outside, the entire defensive scheme changes. It allows for more aggression, more risk, and more reward. Watching how this defense evolves under the guidance of a coordinator who thrives on pressure will be one of the most compelling stories of the 2026 season. We're just days away from the official start of training camp. The check-in day, the physicals, the first whistle. The anticipation is an all-time high. It is a time for optimism, a time for fresh starts, and a time to see which narratives were true and which ones were just smoke and mirrors. Whether it is the battle for the starting linebacker spot, the rise of a new offensive star in Devontae Smith, or the steadfast refusal to trade away a young defensive cornerstone, the next few weeks will provide the answers. The stage is set. The roster is being tested. The pressure is on every single player to justify their spot on the field. From the intensity of the positional battles to the high-stakes decisions being made in the front office, every move is a piece of a much larger puzzle. The journey toward the 2026 season has already begun, and as we look ahead to these training camp battles, one thing is certain. The competition will be fierce, the stakes will be high, and the game on the field will be worth every second of the wait. We've seen the rumors, we've heard the projections, and we've analyzed the potential. But now it's time to see it all come to life. The pads will be on, the plays will be live, and the true colors of this team will finally be revealed. Will the defensive line live up to the hype? Will the wide receiver core prove the doubters wrong? And will the new additions find their footing before the season opener? The answers are closer than you think, and the path to greatness is only just beginning.